Hey everybody, it's Frankie-Lou. I'm coming to you today from the geothermal greenhouse in the sky where I'm doing a little bit more milk jug planting. I'm going to talk to you today about how you can plant some things that are going to help your garden thrive and make them look more beautiful. Even if it's just a vegetable garden, it still can be very beautiful, especially when you bring in flowers that are going to bring in the pollinators. And it's a much more enjoyable place to work when you've got all these wonderful little friends buzzing around and beautiful flowers growing as well. Because it still is early yet in the season, and I'm only planting hardy perennials basically at this point. I'm going to talk about a few that I'm putting in the ground today that might be helpful for you. So first off, I just want to say that not all pollinators are bees. Don't get me wrong, I love bees. And in both my homesteads, I've provided habitat so that I am helping out my native bumblebees, my mason bees, and also my honeybees, because I'm also a beekeeper. And everybody's pretty happy here. That's because I've attempted to build a habitat that's going to sustain everybody around here. So one of the things that you can do to keep those bees coming to you are plants that bees love. When it comes to hardy perennials, there's some that you may not have thought of. Number one thing that you can do is encourage the native shrubs that are in your area. I find particularly for my bumblebees and native little mason bees, they really, really love all those early fruiting shrubs that are natural to the area. Like my wolf willow is often just literally buzzing. It's the first plant that we notice a lot of the bees on. Another good one is caragana. They love that stuff, and honestly, you're going to be feeding those bees their early native crops that they need in order to get through that first hump of the spring. They love all your flowering fruit trees, like your apple trees, your pear trees, your plum trees, cherry trees. Bees love that. Flowers in the garden that I found and herbs that they love tend to be, hyssop is crazy. They absolutely adore hyssop. Another one that they really love, and you may not have seen before, it's not a hardy perennial, but it's a voracious self-seeder, and that's borage. Every single one of my different types of bees adores borage. It produces a lot of blue blooms. I have noticed, apart from the sunflowers, that bees tend to flock or tend to buzz towards plants that are purple. They love those purple hollyhocks. And one of my favorite things is to walk into my garden early, first thing in the morning, and see the little bumblebees sleeping inside the hollyhocks. That is something that brings me a lot of joy. And once it happens to you, you'll feel it too. Borage, as I said, it's a blue-purple flower. They adore that. Other beekeepers come to my property and just say, what the heck is with that flower there? Because they can see the bees are just going crazy for it. And that is my borage. Borage just drives them crazy. So does hyssop. Hyssop is also a voracious spreader though, so these are things you want to try to keep contained. It's easy for me to do in my raised beds, but you might want to try to find a way to contain those. Maybe do grow them in pots or raised beds if you don't want them to take over your yard. If you love to have a wild looking yard, then do plant some hyssop and borage, because trust me, you'll have lots of bees around. These aren't the only things that we're looking for though. One of my most favorite pollinators that I absolutely adore and is very much maligned is the hoverfly. Because hoverflies pollinate and they're excellent at pest control because their larvae eat aphids, whitefly, all sorts of the pests that are in gardens. So you might want to encourage them. Now they like a different kind of flower, but guess what? Most of those flowers turn into something tasty as well. I plant a ton of chervil for those, which is a beautiful, delicious herb that's used in a lot of French cooking. And once you try it, it's also one of the first things that come up in the spring. It's a self-seeder. It will self-seed quite easily, and it's great. It has a white umbel kind of flower. They also really love dill for that reason. And so I plant a lot of dill. Love the taste of dill. So do my hoverflies. And I can't get enough of those guys around. I plant dill in a lot of my beds, especially with brassicas, because it also brings in parasitic wasps that get rid of some of your cabbage moss. Another wonderful herb for bringing in your hoverflies and other types of parasitic wasps is cilantro, because it produces that white umbral flower. I've also noticed when almost all my brassicas do bolt, and I do allow them to do so because I like to seed save, I find that my hoverflies love those little yellow flowers that they tend to produce as well. One you may not have heard of, unless you follow me because I can't shut up about it, is radish. Radish is a wonderful plant for bringing pollinators to your garden because it's also long-lived. You can plant radishes repeatedly, and so you can be providing some nourishment to them throughout the season. If you let your radish bulbs bolt, they'll produce an abundance of flowers, which will bring in all sorts of pollinators. I've seen radish flowers being visited by every single type of pollinator I can imagine, and then it produces a pod that can be eaten as well. Plus, if you've been having a problem with squash bugs in your garden, planting some radishes like white icicle or even your candy cane ones, they will help to repel those squash bugs. I've seen it. It works. Whenever I plant a lot of radish around my squash plant, they've been okay. The moment I take those radish plants out, because I think it's bolted and it's gone too far and I've already harvested and it's only a few flowers, the squash bugs show up. So for me, that's good enough to know. Keep those radish flowering all season long, and I'm going to be keeping away the squash bugs and helping to keep my pollinators happy. I could talk about pollinators in the garden for hours. So if you have any questions about that, please do let me know. Put one in the comments. Also, keep an eye out for my lives. I'm going to be announcing those fairly soon, so you can ask questions in live time. Doing a lot of those from here in the greenhouse in the sky if you want to learn about the geothermal greenhouse here in our operation, or if you want to learn more about milk jug planting, let me know. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you'll take this chance to grow together today. Have a good one.